Hello, welcome to Functional Flow Pilates. This video is for you if you are dealing with some back butt pain. So a little bit lower and off to the side, commonly associated with what's been told as piriformis syndrome, which is really just associated with faulty mechanics around the hip, and then also SI joint pain, again, also associated with some faulty mechanics of the hip, the low back, and the pelvis. So those are all tend to be victims of faulty movement. So the best thing we can do is just improve the overall mobility of the system, and by default, then things start to feel better because they move better, they're controlled better. So that's what we're gonna do today. Okay, we're gonna go through a baseline FFP sequence to associate the hip mobility and the pelvic stability and putting it all together for you, right? So what you'll need is a pillow, because there might be some positions that are uncomfortable or a little bit too tight for your hips. So if you know you have tight hips, grab a pillow, and any belt that you can find. We're going to do that for some isometric work. All right, so we'll just begin right away. You're going to begin on your back on the floor. We'll go through isometrics with our breathing. So grab your belt. All right, so we want to address all the muscles that are associated with the pelvis, getting them to be fatigued, and then hopefully we'll shut down. We're going to try to down-regulate the system and all those muscles associated with our pelvis. So let's start with the belt first. You want the belt to be restricting your movement, but your hips and knees are in line with each other. So there might be a little bit of space between your knees. And then we're just going to stay here. And we're going to get into our breathing. So I like to start here because it's the best way we can down-regulate our nervous system, where we have to be able to relax and find what it is that we can do. For if we start to hold our breath, then our nervous system just freezes, so to speak, right? It gets nervous even more, so it increases the sympathetic system, and it eventually doesn't really allow us to create anything new. It's just being protective and scared. And so maybe that system has already been like that for you. So you want to do the opposite. So we are going to bring everything down. All right, so here we go. Wrap those fingers. Work on your full inhale into your fingers and blow it out. So if you can, in and out through your nose. You can get your ribs to widen into the floor. And then start to press into that belt at the same time. Inhale. On your exhale, slowly release pressure from the belt. And as you start to continue to breathe and press, right, your goal is targeting the side hips, those muscles. For some, it might take you into your SI joint discomfort. Just keep breathing with it. You don't have to overpress. Maybe you can just sustain that pressure now as you continue to breathe. And 2. And last. Awesome. So that's going into our outer hips, hip abduction, abduction, and then we're going to go into pulling inner thighs in, adduction, so ADD. So grab your pillow. I'm going to grab it with my feet, and then we'll just go here. So mine's a couch pillow because eventually I'm going to get my butt on it. All right, so here we go. Feet and knees in line with your hips. And then we're going to start to pull it in, and then just go back to your breathing again. So inhale, exhale. Maybe you begin by compressing on your inhale and relaxing on your exhale. Or maybe you can start to just sustain your pressure and go through your full breathing. Another 2. We're trying to build fatigue. And relax. Ooh, right, so inner thighs. We'll put this off to the side. And now we're going to address flexion and extension of our hip at the same time, but on opposite leg. So one foot is pressing into the floor, other knee comes up. We're going to sustain a barrier here, so this knee is pulling in. So doing this without shifting in your spine, okay? You're going to just pull it in with your stomach, deepen your spine to the floor. As you drive that knee in to your hand, at the same time, can you press foot to the floor? So both legs are moving opposition here. Inhale. And exhale, maybe just back off that pressure. And again, inhale and exhale. Maybe you can just sustain it the whole time as you breathe. Right, you just might feel that fatigue, especially on that hip flexor. Make sure that you're still pulling that heel to the floor. Maybe you're pulling in a little bit heel to butt without actually moving it so you can get your hamstring on. Again, it's a huge learning curve here, guys. Give yourself time. And last. Right, all of this video is to give you education of what you can do and empower you based on what it is that you can do, right? Education and empowerment is what it's all about. So here we go, switch it out. One heel down, one knee in. Try to get that hamstring kicked on the back thigh. Engage that hip flexor, which is pretty easy, but gets tired quickly. So you can engage and back off, or you can just sustain pressure into both legs the whole time while you fully breathe. So 4 to 5 breaths each way on these isometrics. You're working towards fatigue into your last. And then once everything is tired, right, it's a great way to just shut down and reset that system. So your feet and knees are hip width apart here. Hands are down. We're going to start movement. So squeeze your stomach a little bit so that will create a connection here with your pelvis and your ribs. We're going to go through an articulated bridge. So my favorite move. Anyone dealing with low back and butt SI joint piriformis pain, everyone should be doing a bridge. Inhale. Your goal is a stretch of the thighs, right? A nice engaged stomach here, all while you are breathing. Can we breathe and not hold our breath as we encounter things that are challenging, right? That's going to be a big part of the journey of recovery and overcoming any condition, is being able to breathe. Eventually, maybe you get to your shoulder blades. And last. So stay here at the top. Can you pull your heels in without moving them so you feel your hamstring kicks on and then more into your glutes? So typically some people complain like into the low back compression. And so that means you're lifting more with your spine and less in your butt. So get more in your butt and stay there for another 2 and 1. And then bring it down. So hopefully you got those tired. Good job. We'll go through a couple hip stretches. So figure 4 is a common one foot up and over. You have 2 options. You can do a push away, especially if your hip is pretty tight. This is plenty. If you want more of a stretch, if you could lift and grab and support your opposite leg, doing this without stressing your neck and shoulders, okay? Remember breathing and relaxing to see what our body can't do. Right, so this position here is great. And then keep your shape if you lifted it up. We're going to go more into the glutes. So those piriformis muscles, they get such bad reputation. They're part of many hip rotating muscles, and you want all of them. So when we drive this knee towards your opposite shoulder, can you start to feel more of a deeper stretch, kind of at that focal point of discomfort for a lot of people? And I think that's why they give it that term, the piriformis syndrome, but I think we've learned to move away from that and recognize it for what it is, just faulty mechanics of what's going on with the hip and the back. And then here we go. So same thing, other side, right? So push away first. If that is plenty for you, stay here. Opening up the hip, that's all we want. If you want deeper, you can go to your pretzel lift, relax your neck and shoulders, stay and breathe. Allow that hip to continuously rotate open. That's external rotation, so be a side butt stretch. And then we go deeper into the glutes with our piriformis, pulling this knee towards your opposite shoulder without actually twisting the spine. For some, you need a little bit more of an ankle grab to go deeper into that rotation. And if you feel a pinch into the front of your groin, just back off a little bit and add rotation. We'll address that stuff in our next move. Okay, so With that is passive stretching of your hip. Now we're going to get into active stretching. This is where your pillow comes in. So come up onto your butt into seated position. 90-90 is our next position, and it tends to be a challenge. So that's why elevation is key here. So getting your butt up higher off the floor, right? If sitting cross-legged is hard, then grab your pillow, because then one of the legs is going to come back. Oh, I'm be a little bit off to the side. Right? So then open up your knees closer to 90 degrees. And over time, that knee that's with the leg going back and going in into internal rotation is in line with your hip. So depends on how tight you are. You might start off a little bit closed and then that's fine. But then over time, you're trying to open up, right? So it should look like this. All right, so here we are. We're just going to get ourselves into it, right? And just recognize and see, right, what it is that your body's feeling in these positions and what's tight. Allowing yourself to breathe into those hips, into the floor, creating just some movement. So can your pelvis start to move on your hip joints? Connecting a little bit more with your low back. And then deepening into some side bending of our spine. So one hand to the floor, just going to side bend away from your feet. Inhale, exhale, side bend towards. So when you go towards, you're going to feel a deeper stretch into that hip. And this is where we want to start to build activation of our legs, pulling down to the ground. Maybe about 3 of these each way. And then we're going to come forward. So walking your hands past your front leg, maybe just light on your fingertips because you want your muscles to hold you more. So knee pull down, knees pulling down, stomach is holding your spine together, straight spine here. So can we start to kick on as we pull this front knee down? Can that side butt muscle activate? And then start to lower, keep pulling that knee to the floor. So we're resisting our weight coming down through that front knee. We're going to push through that front knee, turn that side butt on even more to bring us all the way up. So you can go with some finger support, or you can just do it completely active as well, right? Without rounding and collapsing, straight and steady. Keep that engagement of that front knee into the floor. Right, so this is our active control of our ability of our hip to externally rotate and control our weight. That's what we need. And then last, maybe 5 or 10 times, right? Just building up that comfort, creating that education of what it feels for you in your body, and then empowering yourself on what it is that you can do in your body. All right, and then hands behind. This one will take you deeper into your internal rotation. This is typically the tighter hip for all of us. That's why we especially have this elevation. People start to cramp. Don't hold your breath, right? Just create a little bit of a tilt of the tailbone so your ribs come in. We're not flaring forward to reach back, right? We're keeping everything in, getting ourselves that stretch and breathe. We won't get into any active work on that hip internal rotation. That just takes time. I think just building up the stretch is plenty to begin. All right, and then we're just gonna do it over on the other side. All right, so again, you need both of those legs on, but you want the lower leg to come off, so that way you have an elevation and slack of your hips, right? If your legs are also on top of the pillow, you're essentially kind of canceling out the reason of having the elevation. So here we go. Feet off your cushion. And then get into your hips. Maybe a little bit of tilting. Inhale, exhale. See what that's like for you. Can you control? Can you connect? You're moving your pelvis on your hip joints. And then we side bend 3 each way. Try to start to drive those knees down. You might feel some stretching in your flank. Good job. And inhale. And exhale. And last. All right, front knee, here we go. We're gonna work on that external rotation side butt. You can go fingertips. Right now you know where we're headed. Feel that control. Hopefully it kicks on, right? You're gonna push that knee down to lift your body up in one piece. So straight spine, right? Keep that length. Don't let your chest collapse. Don't let your shoulders collapse. This front knee is stopping you from falling by connecting into your buttocks and your core all at the same time. So there's that mobility. What can you control? So even people that are very flexible in their hips and super bendy, once we get into active control, right, their range reduces significantly. And that's just associated with what the actual muscle can do versus just a passive stretch. Final one. And then we're going to bring it back, hands behind, little tuck, 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 tuck. Feel that stretch. Breathing into it, solid 4 or 5 breaths. Trying to relax your nervous system so you don't get into too much cramping or holding of your breath. And then maybe you can start to melt a little bit lower into that hip. Ooh, awesome. Okay, so very beginner baseline sequence that helps alleviate a lot of people's discomfort in regards to that buttocks pain that can be associated with your SI joint and your hip rotator muscles, including your piriformis, but not exclusive to, right? The goal is to improve the overall rotation of your hips and then control also of your pelvis and core. It's a great way to just create the beginning of this journey for you. I hope it was helpful. And there's so much more that you can do for this. I hope this is just the beginning of our conversation. Reach out to me if you're ready to do more.